Welcome to the Secret Garden Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Christina, and me and my family purchased our 1-acre homestead a little over a year ago in the Bay Area, California. The reason that I started this channel was that I thought it would be really fun to document what it takes to turn a very raw piece of land with maybe just a home on it and convert it into a homestead where we could grow our own food, raise some of our own animals, and what that process looked like. And so that's the primary focus of this channel. So most of our videos are about building infrastructure like chicken coops or doing irrigation or kind of just zoning and planning out where things should go to get the most out of a small homestead. But I also really like doing orchard tours and eventually garden tours. I don't have any garden beds at the moment. We've been focusing primarily on planting perennials right now, but eventually we will get to gardens. But I think it's really fun to also document planting trees in the ground and then watching them grow and how long it takes to actually get a harvest. We planted most of these trees when we moved into the property. We had an idea of where we wanted the orchard to go. And so now they're roughly a year and a half, and I didn't think that we would get nearly anything on them. But this orchard's surprising me. It's actually producing food for us this year, so I want to show you guys all around. Okay, so this space is our primary orchard on the homestead, and it has between 30 and 40 fruit trees on it. I say primary because in closer up to our house we have a citrus grove which is dedicated to citrus, and that has about 10 trees there. But nothing is really happening at the citrus grove. Everything flowered beautifully, but there's really nothing to show for it yet. The fruit is still growing, and we have something called June drop where citrus trees tend to abort the fruit that it can't support. And so even though it looks like there's a ton of fruit on those trees, there's a good chance that the trees are going to abort a substantial portion of the fruit that I'm seeing on those trees. So nothing really to report there, but what I want to show is this back orchard. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out about this orchard is that we did apply the Back to Eden method on it, on most of it. I think it's about 80% Back to Eden, and we're going to complete that this fall. And although we've suppressed the weeds a ton, we are still combating weeds like crazy. And it got to the point where I was a little discouraged. Even in spring we laid more wood chips just to stop the weeds from coming up, but inevitably they did come up. But I was watching the homesteading family on YouTube, and they were talking about how it just takes some time for the weed bank under the ground to deplete. And so as long as I don't let these weeds go to flower, which some of them I've tried to keep up with them, but there's just so many. But as long as I either chop and drop them or pick them before they go to flower, eventually the weed bank under the ground will go away and the weeds should become less. But this orchard, I've kind of just let it go, knowing that next year I'll have to combat it again. We'll put more wood chips down. I do not regret doing the Back to Eden on this orchard so far, but the weeds have been super intense. There are some areas that I've done a really good job of weeding, and then there's some areas where I saw some volunteer pumpkins popping up, and I just let them go just to see what they would do. I didn't think they would do very well, but they are totally thriving. And so I do have to say this has been one of the greatest highlights of my orchard so far. I know it's not a tree, but this is now giving me the idea that I can probably interplant pumpkins all throughout the orchard because our trees are so little. They don't provide a lot of shade, and so underneath them, maybe as like a weed suppressant, I could also plant pumpkins so that the weeds get shaded out, and then it also produces another food source for us to use that's actually valuable, like pumpkins. I have about 10 pumpkins growing, and it's so exciting. I have no idea what varieties these are. They're not huge, but they did just start growing, and I can't remember what I planted last year. There were 3 very rickety garden beds on the property when we moved in, and I did attempt to plant pumpkins there last year, but my pumpkins did terrible because the soil was just so bad and they did not thrive. I mean, It's so funny, like you put so much love and care into something. Like I wanted those pumpkins to grow so bad. They gave me 2 pumpkins that eventually shriveled up and died, and that's where these pumpkins came from. And then you put 0 effort into volunteers and they just thrive like nobody's business. So note to self, in February I'm just going to go around planting some pumpkin seeds and I'm just going to let them ride themselves in the orchard for next year. Okay, so the first tree that I want to show you is actually an apple tree. All of my apple trees are still really young, and I do believe that apples take a pretty long time to grow, but I have one apple tree that actually fruited this year. We have 4 apples on it, and that is our Empire apple tree. It is a really little tree, and I am tempted to pull the apples off just to give it another year, but last year I did pull all the fruit off of the trees in an effort to let it develop a good rooting system. So I think I'm just gonna let these 4 ride out and see what happens. So I have 1, 2, 3, and then number 4 right there. I can't remember when Empire apples are ready to harvest or what they taste like, but I'm really excited. I'll have to look that up because it'll be the only apple harvest that we have this year. But even though the apples are kind of sparse, which I expected because our apple trees really need time to mature, our peaches are on fire. Currently planted, I have 6 peach trees, and I kind of assembled them for when they ripen. So over there, I have 2 Eva's Pride peaches, which would be ready to harvest in about a week or so, but they are very small and immature trees. I purchased them very little, and for whatever reason, I believe they were about the same size. Maybe this one was a little bit bigger, but they looked about the same. This one was planted in the Back to Eden portion of the orchard, and that one was not. And this one is just absolutely thriving. I mean, it's a beautiful peach tree. I did not spray any of these peaches with anything. No copper fungicide. I'm not opposed to it. I just kind of wanted to see how these peaches performed without it the first year. So this one's very little. And again, I mean, the soil is the same, but it's not covered. I've been fertilizing it the same. It's still beautiful. It's just much smaller. So these are my Eva's Pride peaches, which would be ready, let's say, in the first 2 weeks of June. And then I have a mid-pride peach, which is ready to pick about 2 to 3 weeks later. So this will be end of June, early July. And I'm starting to get some really beautiful peaches on them. Let's see if I can show you. This one's probably the size of a golf ball. Same with that one. And then some of them are smaller, more like a ping pong size ball. Between the 2 trees, I probably have almost 40 pieces of fruit. If you watched my last video, you know that I switched from bird netting to the organza bags. I actually learned after I did the organza bags, I probably should have used green organza bags instead of white so that the birds and squirrels weren't attracted to the pieces of fruit on the tree as much. But so far, that has allowed my trees to grow. I netted my peach trees because the squirrels or rats or something were getting to the very immature fruit and just taking little nibbles and damaging the fruit. As soon as I netted the trees, that stopped the problem, but it didn't allow the trees to grow. And I need the trees to grow and the branches to grow because peaches grow on new wood, and my next year's harvest would be impacted by the trees not growing new wood. So I took the nets off, I put the organza bags on, and it seems to be working. The squirrels have not been attacking the trees. I've heard maybe later when the trees are ready, when the fruit is ready to harvest, that maybe the squirrels will attack it or the birds, and the organza bags won't stop them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double down and I'm going to put the tree nets back on about a week or 2 before I'm going to harvest the peaches so that they're double protected in the organza bags and in a bird net, and I'm hoping that will be sufficient to protect them. Okay, and then over here I have 2 more peach trees. that are loaded with peaches. These are our Alberta peaches, and they are ready to harvest probably mid to end of July. And these peaches are, I mean, this tree is loaded. I think it has like 50 pieces of fruit on it. They're all really good sizes for where they're at in the season. I mean, they have a long way to go before I have to harvest them. So I'm really excited about these 2 peaches. One of my primary goals here on the homestead, because we live in zone 9 and have a really long growing season, is to eat seasonally. There are certain things that I'll preserve, like cherries or strawberries for making jam, rhubarb as well. But for the most part, I have a heart's desire to just kind of eat fresh and eat in season. And so as I'm looking at our orchard, I'm identifying some holes that we have in the season. For example, we don't have anything really that matures in the month of May. And so there are peach varieties. I believe they're the May Pride peach and the Florida Prince peach that I can grow here that would give me peaches in the month of May. And then also in the August time frame, I don't really have currently any fruit that I could harvest. So I'm trying to think through, like, what would I have to eat in that month? It would be grapes and some apples. So I may also get an August Pride peach, just because I think peaches are so novel, and there's nothing like a homegrown peach. So I think those are my next 2 tree purchases, is to get those to extend our peach harvest, because truthfully you can never have enough peaches. Okay, my next thing is kind of a cheat. It's definitely older than 2 years old, and it's not even mine, it's my neighbor's, but I have this branch hanging over from my neighbor's property, and it is a nectarine tree, and this tree looks absolutely beautiful. For all of my stone fruit, I go ahead and thin them so that the peaches are roughly 6 inches apart, and that just allows the tree more energy to put into the fruit that it has, so you get bigger fruit. And so I went ahead and I organza bagged these in green bags, and then I thinned them, and I don't even know what variety this is or when to harvest, but I'll be keeping an eye out and making sure to harvest, and then, you know, giving some to the neighbors. I'm pretty sure last year that my neighbor said she was going to cut the tree down because it had peach leaf curl, but we'll see. I have planted 3 cherry trees. They did not fruit for us this year. This would be more along the lines of that early fruit that would be in season, maybe like end of May, June, and those are cherry trees. So I have cherries. One's right there, the other's right here, and then a Bing cherry. There are growers that grow Bing cherries in the area, but my understanding is that you need 700 chill hours to get fruit off of a Bing cherry, and I don't think that we get it in zone 9B. So I decided to plant it because it's sold at the local garden center, but it does say zone 8 is its maximum. But I was watching a YouTube video once of a guy growing apples down in the Irvine area, and he grew only apples that required significantly more chill hours than what Irvine has, and they all fruited. So I think that trees can acclimate to your area. I am totally a proponent of going outside the box and trying something. It's one space in our orchard to kind of experiment and give it a try, and if it doesn't work, you can always pull it out in a couple years and replace it with something else. It is totally worth it to experiment, because if we end up getting cherries off this tree, Bing cherries are absolutely delicious, and it's just gonna be really exciting. Over here I have our Chinese pomegranate. Last year it gave me 7 blooms, and this year it is completely just loaded with blooms. I've heard that pomegranate trees grow really fast. This tree actually came with the property, and we worked around it because we love pomegranates. That's the start of one. Oh, here's another one. And they put on like the prettiest flowers. So we worked around it to fit in this pomegranate. Most pomegranates are grown as shrubs. They like those suckers to come up and they get really bushy. but I prefer pomegranates to look like trees. So I have been fighting this pomegranate tree to grow up and not out and bushy. And overall, I think it's been working. If I had this pomegranate as a baby, I wouldn't have let it split like that. I probably would have grown it from a central leader going up, but it felt wrong to cut it at this point. So I'm gonna grow it off of 3 main branches. I have another very, very little wonderful pomegranate over here. And I bought this as the tiniest little thing. Oh, and it looks like it has a little bud on it. Oh, it has a couple. I'm not gonna let these fruit. There's no way. But this is what a bud looks like. Oh, that's so cool. It's too little, so I'm gonna pull these off. I want this tree to really focus on having a good root system. So I'll probably try to mirror how that one is growing. So currently I have it growing on 2 leaders, and I'll probably keep it at that because I want them to look symmetrical. We get really hot here in Northern California, and pomegranates are perfect because they're very drought tolerant. I don't need to water them a ton. So I absolutely love having pomegranates here. These will be ready to harvest around Thanksgiving. So I think last year, literally on Thanksgiving Day or the day before, I came out and harvested our 7 tiny pomegranates, and we had them for Thanksgiving, which was so awesome. Okay, so these are our 2 Santa Rosa plum trees, and they have just put on insane growth since the spring. If you followed my channel at all, you know that these plums are literally the best fruit ever. And so I had to plant 2 trees because back where we used to live, we had 1 and we would just eat through the whole tree. So 1 was not enough, we needed 2. I think between these 2 trees, we only have 1 piece of fruit. It's gonna be a couple years, I think. Maybe next year we'll get more, but at least 2 more years till we'll get anything resembling a normal harvest off these trees, but they are looking beautiful. I had pruned them in a way that I felt had kind of ruined them, but they are proving to reshape themselves. I'm gonna let them grow through the summer. I'm not gonna do any summer pruning except for they were growing very low down the trunk, so I cut those off. But other than that, I'm gonna let them grow, and then as soon as they go dormant in the winter, I will try and do a better job at pruning them. But my favorite tree, how it was pruned, actually died, and I don't know why. This was our Tilton Apricot. I thought it was beautifully pruned, but it's absolutely dead, and you can see the rootstock that it was on is trying to come up. I feel like apricots have a hard time in our area because we had a large apricot when we moved into the homestead that was really struggling and dying as well. So we're going to pull that out. I'm going to try to buy another apricot, maybe a little bit more mature, and give it another whirl because we don't love apricots, but it would be nice to have an apricot tree here as well. Okay, and last but not least, we have our avocados. I have 4 avocado trees planted on the homestead. I have a Haas variety, a bacon variety, a surprise variety, and a Pinkerton. And I believe Haas, surprise, and Pinkerton all are ready to harvest around the same time, but they hold their fruit for a different amount of time on the tree. So that's closer to like the summer when you harvest them. And all these trees look really sad because they are evergreen, I believe, but they do drop their leaves, flower, and then put on new leaves. And it's just been a little while of flowering, and now that they're done flowering, they are pushing out new growth, but right now they look very naked. And that is why I had to paint them white, because avocados are very, very prone to sunburn, and so whitewashing them helps them so that they don't get sunburn and then ultimately get sick. So all of these have been whitewashed. None of them have fruit, I don't think. This Haas tree over here Looks like it got briefly pollinated by the bacon. You can kind of see like right there, there's a baby avocado. But avocado trees do abort their fruit, so I don't think any of the fruit's gonna hold. If you're new to avocado trees and you're in a zone that can support them, you need 2 different types of avocado trees in order to get avocados. So you have a type A like a Haas, or I believe a Pinkerton, or a type B like a Fuerte or a Bacon or a Surprise, in order to get any avocados on your trees. Except for our bacon tree over here is self-fertile, and so it is loaded with avocados. This is like last month my peaches were my pride and joy. Right now this bacon avocado tree, which says Fuerte because we had a Fuerte here and it did not make it. Bacon avocado tree is my absolute pride and joy. It is loaded with avocados. And these will be ready to harvest December, January, and February. I'm interested to try this variety because what we're used to getting at the store is more like a Haas. It has a thick skin, a medium-sized pit, and it's very creamy. I've heard the bacons have a very thin skin. It's hard to cut them and then eat them from the skin. But they are good for making like a guacamole, and if you don't harvest them at the right time, they will kind of rot at the bottom and then split open. So I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on this tree come the winter time. But man, this tree has been so exciting to me because it's loaded with at least 40 to 50 avocados, and I didn't think that we would get avocados this year. Anyway, so that is the tour that I have for you guys. Each month we are planting more and more and more in the hopes of establishing more perennials for our homestead. So this month we're focusing on table grapes. So I just put an order in for red and green table grapes, which will be going in our grape arbor. That video, give it like a week or two. We're really close to being done with our grape arbor. And then I think we have kind of switched plans. We were going to build more infrastructure like a greenhouse or like a pergola area to sit out in the orchard, but I think we've decided to change our minds, and we're going to be moving to the berry patch, which originally I was going to put at the very back of the property, like make a really cute little berry area, but we've decided, because of irrigation primarily, and just ease of walking to it, we're going to be planting an asparagus bed, and then blackberries, boysenberries, and raspberry bushes in a little area over by our dilapidated barn. And I think that's going to be our next project, which I'm really excited about, getting those perennials in the ground, because maybe next year we have a shot at actually getting some berries. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging with me on the first day of June. If you guys like this sort of content and building up a homestead from scratch, using your small acreage homestead efficiently, please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. It is so fun meeting other people who are doing high intensity gardening, who want to live off the land. I so enjoy it. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you guys in future videos.